We all know and love Lucy Lawless. She's a New Zealand icon, an incredible actress. Just recently, she's become even more of a multi-hyphenate than she already is. She has directed her first feature film. It's a documentary called Never Look Away. Incredible documentary about the war photographer Margaret Moth. It's a very, very powerful film. It's coming up on Rialto channel on the 22nd of March, 8:30 p.m, so do be sure to tune in with that. I got the chance to sit down and have a chat with Lucy Lawless, so check out our conversation right now. Kia ora, Lucy. Thank you so much for sitting down to chat with me today.
No trouble.
Now, Never Look Away, your wonderful documentary about Margaret Moth, drops on Rialto channel on the 22nd of March. I've had the chance to watch it, and I was really blown away, very moved by the story. And I guess to start with, I wonder if maybe you can just tell us a little bit about Margaret Moth and how you came to this story, this kind of figure.
Uh, well, Margaret Moth is a wild woman who hails from New Zealand, and she went off to war and became one of the first CNN camera women. Um, Back when CNN was 24/7 news was brand new, and by and by, she was hit by a sniper's bullet, and it blew her jaw off. So she did not die; she survived, and went on to do amazing work in war without her teeth, without her tongue, just a remarkable, remarkable human being.
Mm. And so, this is your directorial debut.
Yeah.
What made you sort of decide this is the moment, this is the subject matter to kind of jump in with that kind of?
I can't even tell you. It was like metaphysical. I got this email from Joe Duran, who's Margaret's best friend. He's in the film. And he said, "Do you want to make a film about my best friend?" And my mind went back to 1992 when all of New Zealand was transfixed to CNN because one of our own had her face blown off, basically, and was thought not likely to survive. So everything I knew about Margaret had to have come from that report. And it's like the spirit of Margaret reached out, grabbed me by the scruff of the neck, and booted me through the directing door because I don't know where I got the bottle to say, yes, I will find the money. I'll find the producers. This has to happen. In part, I was scared that somebody else would get the mail out. I thought it must be like this email's gone out to thousands of people.
Yeah,
Everybody's going to want to do it, but it had never been in my mind prior to that moment that, in fact, I wasn't even thinking of directing. I was just going to produce it. But in the end, there was nobody who cared about it like me. So it was just natural that I would take that role.
Mm. And it's such a confident piece of work. I mean, what kind of process I'm interested in the process of like how you decide what parts of her life to include, how to visualize them. What was the preparation of how to present this story like for you?
Yeah. Well, you're right. That's difficult because there's no script. And we didn't know what we were going to find. Margaret lived a very compartmentalized life. So her family didn't know anything really about her work, her day-to-day life. Until she was sniped, she had very little contact with them. They're a very fractured family. I love them all, but they don't love one another because of their childhood. So I didn't know what the story was. I knew about her work life, so that was pretty clear. But that's not what interests me. This isn't it cannot be called a documentary because I'm not interested in what historically has been called objective fact. I'm interested in people's subjective accounts and how they don't always mesh up. So I needed to find her lovers because for such a kick-ass woman, she had a very unusual love life. And sex was extremely important to her. So there was no way to tell the story without getting to her lovers. And I was really thrilled to be able to get Jeff, her first lover in America, who was 17 when she was 30, actually 31 when they met. And then her lover the time she was shot, Yashinka, in Paris, who was a gypsy king. I mean, he's literally a gypsy, and he would have this brocade jacket with a matching waistcoat and holes in the elbow and a flapping shoe, but immaculate white jeans and beautiful jewelry, and really cool guy.
Yeah.
And we pulled up to his house outside Paris, and it was like a big prison gate that rolled back, and there was revealed this house like little Lord Fauntleroy's house, like from the 18th century maybe.
Wow.
And we're just going, no way. You know, everybody said he'll be dead. He's a heroin addict. He'll be dead. Found him. He was willing to talk, rock up to his house, and there he's standing in his gypsy finery, flanked by two enormous goats. And I'm like, get the camera. but unfortunately, such rich, wonderful images didn't make it in the picture because it's all about Margaret. You've got to really pare things down. So super hard to, I just knew that I needed to put the family in. We were running out of time, and Sundance was coming, and everybody wanted to just submit it. And I was like, no, we have to have the family. And got a bit of pushback on that. We don't have time, you know, nobody cares about family. And I said, anyway, I went to war on that point. I was like, this is not a Lucy Lawless film without the family. And excuse me for generalizing here, guys, but every woman in the cinema will walk out. This is not interesting without the family. And you need to know a little bit about her trauma. And it's more inference, you know. I wanted to leave it. I'm not spoon feeding you all the facts. That's classic documentary. This is where you have to lean in and decide who's telling the truth, who's a reliable narrator. It gives you something to do as the audience. That's what I mean, and that's how life is. You know, people don't remember things perfectly. And so I've tried to be true to Margaret's attitude in life, which was to be supremely non-judgmental. And that, in a curious way, puts the onus on you, the audience, to make judgments about people, about Margaret herself. You know, her boundaries were not where you and I might have common boundaries. She was different to us. And I think people with strange boundaries amaze and befuddle us. So they're always worth looking at.
And it's a very, as you say, you paint a very complex figure. Like, she's not purely praised or vaulted in the film. She's given all these different shades of gray, which I think paint, as you say, this picture of a lot more of a rounded person. And I'm interested that you brought up the difficulty with finding the family, because those interviews in the film are some of the kind of most mysterious and difficult and sad. And I'm interested, being in the room with those people, what was that experience like? Firstly, finding them, but also just like, touching on something that has probably been buried for a really long time. Must have been quite heavy.
Yes. Oh, you're so right. First of all, I would say that I loved them. Each one of them I have such warmth for them. They're really cool people, but they don't love one another. And that's because of this very loveless childhood from their parents. There's not a lot of cohesion there, but they were, like Margaret herself, bloody minded and like, that's the truth. They told me all this stuff on the phone. They had zero pity for themselves, exactly like Margaret. So I didn't really understand Margaret until I met the family, because she was not like anything I've ever met. She's so contradictory. Like I say, her boundaries are not where anybody I've ever met has their boundaries. I mean, about sex, about drugs, about hunger for experience, the war, and all this stuff. So I couldn't understand. Then I met the family, and I realized that they perhaps never developed a capacity for self-pity. So they don't pity one another, and they don't, and they just, I don't know, they're just fragmented, all spread out across the world, and Australia actually. But they were very instructive, meeting them. I loved them. Sadly, they sort of backpedaled on some of the stories that they told me in private, but the laughing was weird and very common to them. Even though they never talked about it, they never planned it. It was just something natural. That's how the Wilson family dealt with horror.
Yeah.
So I never. And I said to her older sister, Jan, said, Jan, God, I wish you'd had been cuddled as a child, Jan. And she looked at me like, what? And then she went, oh, yeah, 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 I think that would have been good. Like, she never considered that she deserved a more loving childhood.
Yeah.
Never occurred to her.
Wow.
And then I met the next generation,
Mm.
their children, and they wept and they said, wow, the film really explained our own parent to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
No sharing of no conversation about within the family about parents were trying to figure out and getting therapy.
Mm.
No, they
Yeah.
just gone on with their lives.
Yeah, right. And I think, there's so much that is uncovered in the film also via this trove of archival footage, not just her war reporting, but, the behind the scenes, the little glimpses of her life that we get.
Mm.
How long was that process of finding these archival footage
Oh
and
God, let me tell you.
them?
Okay, really hard. Now, people out there, I don't. Is your podcast is film centric? Is it?
Yeah.
Great, because most people wouldn't care about archive. Here's the truth: a lot of that stuff is not Margaret's.
Mm.
Well, I tried to narrow it down to times that comported with her press passes and her passports and conflicts that I knew anecdotally she was at.
Mhm.
But camera people were not given credits in those days.
Mm.
And a lot of the tapes, because they filmed on like great big beta tapes, they would edit them in the field and send just the final package back to CNN. And the tapes would be taped over or destroyed. So
Wow.
they weren't, there is none. There is so
Wow.
little. And I found it by dumb luck, just by doing research on YouTube, looking at a massacre I knew she was at. And I went, oh my God, I think that's Margaret in the back of this guy's shop doing a job, kneeling on the ground, dressed in black. She always wore black.
Mm.
So I contacted this kid who was, well, he was a kid at the time. He just happened to be at this UN camp on the day that the Israelis bombed the bejesus out of it
Mm.
in 1996. And he caught Margaret. She was already there when he got there.
Wow.
But amazing. So I had to get this footage out of Iran, and that was quite a trick. Well, my producers did. I can't take credit. Leslie Hansen and
I bet there's
Matthew
also
Metcalf did that.
I
Yeah.
bet there's all sorts of incredible behind the scenes stories of getting some of this stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but also it leads to some of the most interesting kind of creative elements of the film where you kind of break away from traditional archival footage. For example, those amazing sequences where you depict almost like with a 3D model or something, the moment of
Oh,
the
yeah.
shooting.
Yeah,
So
those are Weta diorama. They're beautiful, aren't they? Weta
they're
did that.
absolutely gorgeous,
Yeah.
and I mean, in amongst other things, like little kind of artistic flourishes, little moments of kind of almost dreamlike appearances with a younger Margaret, or like a actress cast, I assume, as
Yeah.
a younger Margaret. So I assume part of that came from the necessity of not necessarily having all the footage, but
Yeah.
like what also led to those decisions, those specific creative decisions to do it the way you did do it.
Well, Margaret wasn't rolling a camera on any of her darkest moments. So
Yeah.
how do you tell a story when there is, you have to have images? That's definitely the hardest thing.
Mm.
Otherwise, you've just got a bunch of talking heads, and who cares about that? And though my people were amazing, but yeah, so we needed a bit of impressionistic stuff. The inspiration for that was Buto dancing from Japan, which was developed after the Nagasaki and Hiroshima, where all that Japan had left was like shame and degradation, and yeah, those were their stories. And the Americans left, leaving their cinemas or their theaters, and they were like, well, what do we do with these theaters? And they filled it with their own stories of pain and
Mm.
the awful reality of post-war Japan.
Mm.
So it's an amazing dance form. So that was the inspiration.
Mm.
The diorama, we were like, how do we tell this story? There's no footage of the moment Margaret was shot, obviously. They're just driving to work. They're not rolling cameras.
Mm.
And we were like, animation, yeah, that's not fresh. Everybody does animation. It's expensive, takes a long time, or we don't, couldn't afford it anyway. Recreations, that's not fresh,
Yeah.
expensive, blah, blah, blah. And somebody, it was Matthew Metcalf, always had a bit of a thing for the war diorama in Canberra at the War Memorial Museum, I guess. And he was like, what about diorama? And I, being a child of the 70s, was like, oh, yeah. Like, that was our CGI. Like, that is so old, it's fresh again, So, so we rolled with that. And then we're having these meetings going, what do we do with shoot off? We're going to have skies. Can we do green screen? They're like, can't afford green screen. Oh, okay. Well, what can I afford? You can afford a black curtain. I went, perfect. And then they said, oh, and Lucy, you can only have 3 colors. 3 colors for what? 3 colors for everything. I went, all right, then I'm going to choose 3 colors that don't want to go together in nature, so that you are uneasy. Like the color of the skin is green, and the buildings are gray, and I want an apricot light. So against that black curtain, it's going to look like the midnight sun. So I don't know if it's day or night, and it doesn't matter because you're in dream world, right? You're in a nightmare scape.
Totally.
And then with awesome sound design, you can also make the audience even more uncomfortable. It'll be harder at home, but if you're in a cinema, you can really feel it, this subliminal tension that is coming to you in somatically, in your body's feeling the sound, and it's all designed to put you in this state of anticipation, a negative anticipation. Yeah.
Well,
sound design's my favorite thing of filmmaking.
Absolutely. And it's so successful. It's so unsettling. It's a very, very powerful moment. Has this experience made you kind of catch the bug in terms of direct further? I
I'm
know you're
afraid
a
so.
busy person. So have you got plans for another project coming up or anything like that?
Yes, I'm pursuing. I've got 3 scripts which we are seeking funding for in different parts of the world in different ways.
Yep.
Another script in the offing that I just like. I'm just supporting this young storyteller who's, I think, really talented, that I would love to direct, but it may need somebody of Cook Island or Maori descent to direct it, because it's got cultural themes that might require that, but that's fine. It's fine. I just want it to get made. I'm hustling like a son of a gun, like everybody else, and I'm about to film a TV series. So I'm gonna have to knuckle down and just be an actor for a while. Meanwhile, harboring dreams of world domination.
Yeah, very good. I really, again, this film really moved me, and I'm so thankful for you to making the time to talk to me today about this great film.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for your time. Thanks for your
Thank you so
attention.
much. We'll chat again soon. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye now.